Start the morning right with a cup of Vinyl Tap. Nothing beats the refreshing taste of a hot, warm mug of Vinyl Tap. Enjoy your podcast in liquid form today. Vinyl Tap. Enjoy responsibly.
2, 1.
Vinyl Tap.
I'm Habibi.
I'm Habibi.
I'm Habibi.
And this week on Vinyl Tap, we just listened to Babble by Beans.
Babble Beans.
Babble Beans.
Babble Beans.
Babble.
It says baked beans on the album cover.
Does it?
Maybe they used to be baked beans and they're still, I don't know.
Like as in like the
It
the
says
band
baked
is...
beans, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and like the little explosion comic book thing.
Yeah.
Pretty cute.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool album cover.
I think you
I
made
like the
a
bright
good
colours.
point though, that they really missed out on a good opportunity. Have like a Heinz baked beans tin.
In the style of
Like
the
the
Campbell's
psychedelic-
soup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beans.
Like the Warhol painting.
Yes, like the
Okay.
Warhol painting. I think that would be
I think
cool.
it would, I don't think it would work with the aesthetic of the album because this is really like 60s psych shit, right?
Yes, very much so.
I think you should clash with your album cover and your album content. I think
I
that's
wasn't even
great.
suggesting it for this album. I was suggesting it just as an idea in general. It's something I think that would be
You can have that for free
cool to do.
beans.
Yeah, where do you see this?
Yeah, it was very 60s. Garage. What do you call it? Garage revival is what I've
Garage
coined it.
psych? I don't really know.
Was this a sound that existed back then? Like, it's comprised of sounds that existed in the past, but did this...
I don't think so.
I don't think it did
I think it's a
either.
combination of things because there's a lot of rockabilly kind of guitar
Yeah.
tones in there as well, very like 50s, and then especially some of the synth sounds I don't think were a 60s sound.
Yeah. And then pairing that with the, like, rotary organ with, like, those bloopy Hammond sounds.
bloopies.
Yeah. I don't think that was a sound that existed back then. Maybe it was.
No, I feel like that.
But, like,
the
pairing
rotary
that,
Yeah.
I don't think that the mixture existed. Especially with the huge reverby, washed out
So
vocals.
would you call this
vocals.
prog then?
I think it's a fusion. I don't
Okay.
know if it's progressive.
Okay.
I definitely think it's a revival thing because it's like there's a whole bunch of this sound happening everywhere. Like, well, at least I know it's happening in the States a lot.
Yeah.
With
was.
examples?
Ty Seagull,
Okay. I
White
don't know.
Fence.
I know I put you
see?
on the spot
I
right there.
got my examples
Yeah.
ready.
Yeah, that's
Come
totally
at me.
fine. That's totally fine.
No. Actually, Ty Seagull's I think it's Ty Seagull. I don't know how to say his name, but he's actually like a good example. He's got fuckloads of albums and does all this, like, records to tape, leaves them out in the sun.
Oh, this is that dude you were talking
Yeah,
about. Okay.
yeah, and gets like all of these weird aged effects that like
Leaving tape out in the sun, that's cool.
yeah, it's interesting. It
Give it
kind
a-
of doesn't
bath.
sound
It's
great.
more about the process than the end result.
I feel like that. Yeah.
Shades of Beefheart.
Shades of Beefheart are going on there. The washed out vocals especially, I think is a thing that didn't happen in the 60s that's happening in this.
When was that a thing, though?
Well,
I
like,
know it's a current
2010
thing.
to now.
Is that like a 90s shoegaze kind of thing? Is that where it started?
I don't know enough about shoegaze to tell you that.
I'm trying to think if there's any like 80s pop that did that kind of thing.
There's, like, yeah,
I think of
dream
Dire
pop.
Straits, Money for Nothing with Sting, like that's kind of washed
But
out.
that's kind of like a
It's
harmony,
not. It's
though,
nowhere
right?
near the same effect. And this album got me thinking about like the history of reverb and why we use it the way we do. Like originally, wasn't it intended just to replicate the way that a person sounded in a space as opposed to just off tape?
Well, because initially recording studios, reverb, they had entire rooms
Yeah,
to
it's
play
completely
the
natural.
audio in
Yeah.
and bounce it around. But
Yeah.
obviously that's space ineffective, and that's when they started using
And time ineffective.
and time ineffective. No, I think that's okay, because I think it can be done while it's recording.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong, but because then I think did springs or plates come first? I think plates came first,
right?
and then springs came after that.
Yeah.
And now I think most studios, like bigger studios, would have one, if not one of each. and most studios don't have a room dedicated to reverb because of plugins and
Yeah. Well, it's a thing of the past now. But I was thinking about like what the purpose of it was.
yeah, and it was to sound like you were in a space rather
Yeah.
than like an isolated
To make
booth.
it feel real, but then like it started being experimented with to create like more abstract, I suppose, or like unique sound.
Became an instrument within itself.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
And that's a part of the huge experimentation of effects in the 60s to make the studio an instrument of itself
Yeah.
rather than just, you know, the method by which we produce recorded sound.
Well, on the note of reverb, you guys apparently were somewhat disagreeing, but I also think this sounds very surf rock.
Yes and no.
Not in the thing that it's like explicitly just surf rock, but like Tim saying, it's a combination of things, and there's a
I
lot
think
of
there's surf in there.
surf rock elements throughout.
I'm going to throw you under the bus here. I think you said something along the lines of a lot of Geelong bands.
From
Have a
the
surf rock
bands
sound.
that I have seen from Geelong, yes. And you're going to ask me to name some?
Yeah.
And I can't remember their names.
Beans is one.
Yeah, there's Beans.
Okay, fair enough.
And that's not to categorize all bands from Geelong as surf rock, just the ones that I've encountered.
Surf rock other than the...
Well, that's
The
like
reverb.
a metal gallop, right?
Yeah. It's,
So that's a gallop that you've washed in reverb. The drums, I think, is an
Yeah.
integral part of surf. Can you describe surf drums?
So
Because we've
generally-
had our experience with that.
Generally, surf drums are not as hard or as heavy or intense. They're a bit more chilled out. Even if they're energetic and frantic, which they can be, they've still got that, don't want to say softness, but they're not like oomph.
I think
oomph.
that's kind of funny. So
Powerful. They're not as
Yeah.
powerful. How do they sit in the mix in surf? Is it any different to general rock, or is it like lower down?
I would need to listen to compare. I don't know off the top of my
Here's the
head.
thing. I just haven't listened to much surf in my life.
I feel like Comfortable, which is I think song number 3 on this album.
Yep.
Big surf rock vibes. Like really, that was that big surf rock song of the album. I feel.
And the guitar is that 50s rock and roll sound as well.
Yeah, the drums though were kind of really heavy in this, and there was almost
Sure.
like Chuck Berry vibes in the vocals. That kind of like screaming, growling
Yeah.
vocals that are like that kind, almost like early '60s punk style. You know, like
Proto-punk, surely.
yes, exactly. And I thought that was really interesting because like surf rock for me is kind of in the drums and being that like yeah, you can be energetic, but it's not like heavy.
See, I completely like it's
Disagree.
part of it, but I don't think it's the whole bit. Like the reverb aspect of it is so much because you
Okay,
take a lot of those surf rock songs that are classic surf rock songs, take away that reverb, you get like more of a country kind of vibe from the song.
Yeah, fair
Even
enough.
though
Okay.
everything else compositionally and tonally is the same, without that reverb, it becomes a lot more country blues, like 145 kind of stuff.
I don't think this is that at all.
I don't think that this is that at all either, but because of the reverb is so important to like what was surf rock, that tone kind of implies surf rock,
But saying
even though
that
it's a
like
different context.
washing everything in reverb makes it surf rock. That I know that's not exactly what you're saying, but like you could say the same thing. Like it
Put
makes
words in
it
his mouth,
it makes
do
it shoegaze. It makes it any other
Well,
dream
it
pop, any other
depends.
kind of genre that's like drowning in reverb.
It obviously then still comes down to these are guitars with lines that could be
Yeah.
within the surf rock
Yes,
realm,
that's what
as
it is.
opposed to
Yeah.
I don't know off the top of my head, but like a dream pop, like big long held chords,
Yeah.
as opposed to like
Well, the
movable
guitars aren't
lines.
necessarily drowned in reverb.
No,
And
true. There's,
I think also another thing that it's like the vocals are used as an instrument in a way that it's sort of it's less kind of the wall of sound effect, and it's more a little bit like like focus on the vocals, but they are an instrument amongst the band.
Yeah.
With the way that we've treated it, or at least that's how it felt to me.
it's quite sparing in vocals. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like that's
You're talking about the album as a whole.
yes. I think that's not a bad thing whatsoever.
It's a very psych thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Focus on the instrumentation because that's where like a lot of the material that you want to explore in your psychedelic voyage lies.
Yeah. Oh well. Does anyone have any particular songs that they want to point things out in?
I think so. I just saw something in my notes and thought I would point it out. Stale, the song called Stale. I think this is. I assume that this is an intentional like kind of joke, that the song sits on 4 chords for the entire duration. It goes 1, 3, 2, 5 forever.
Is that different to any other songs?
Yeah. I don't think that they all like sit on the same progression forever and ever. Slow, the first song, like has quite a variance of harmonic material. I don't want to say it's too much because like it's all sitting in the one key. There's a lot of modal shit in here, which is like usually emblematic of metal. And some of these riffs do sound like they're straight from a metal band.
Yeah.
Don't you reckon?
Yeah.
Especially in which song was it? The one that fucking slapped? Ring Around.
Yeah.
The one where it's got that crazy Phrygian F sharp minor. Like when I say those words, it just feels like a metal band. And a lot of like some treatment does sound like early metal to me. Like you said that Comfortable sounded very surf to you, but I thought that like the like gap in the instrumentation for the vocals to like take an odyssey, a journey around its range, that sounded like War Pigs to me. That sounded like Black Sabbath, but like drowned in reverb.
There were
Yeah.
a few songs where I completely agree. Fuck, which one is it? There's a couple where they were doing the Sabbathy thing of like instruments coming together and doing lines and then breaking apart, doing their own thing.
Yep.
So playing with the overarching
unison.
texture.
Yeah.
And by texture there, I mean like in the analytic sense rather than the production sense.
Yeah, I think
yeah.
it was Ditsy Rich. They were doing it. There was a lot of sections where they'd kind of like line up, do a line together, break away. I think there was in the verse section, the end of the vocal phrases were lining up with the guitars. Mm-hmm. Unsurprisingly, I think they did texture really well across this. They didn't. Even though they sat on the same riff for a while, there were a lot of instruments coming in and out, call and response between vocals and lead lines, and they did it consistently throughout.
I like the use of the organ to fill space.
Yeah.
Like, it reminds me of Mark Knopfler doing a lick at the end of every vocal line. It's just like there to give a bit of flair at the end. There was one song where it was just so sick every time. Which was it? There was one song where... it was a synthesizer in plans after every vocal line, every 2 bars. The synth just like fucking went in and it was good shit.
The synth treatment is really cool because like often I hear organ used as a doubling of a guitar or something. And
like as a sustained chord
thank
instrument.
the Lord, like it had its own rhythmic part and it was distinct from the rest of the band. Guitar and organ worked as separate instruments together.
And that's an idea
Thank you.
that kind of comes from soul and gospel. There's so many influences at play here, but I guess you could do that for any album.
So yeah, well, okay. So like your point on Stale having that kind of intentional chord progression of just 4
I'm
chords,
assuming
and they're
I'm
using
being
all
charitable.
that modal stuff. Like you mentioned this earlier, and like very first thing I wrote was that it's King Giz vibes. And sure enough, you said that they're like
They're associated. I don't know exactly the way, but the front man of this band is
The drummer in the Murlocs.
Who are signed to the same label as King Giz, and as far as I'm aware, they all know each other and play on each other's stuff.
They're in a big band polycule.
Yeah, and it's definitely got that kind of... it's like an aesthetic, almost. A sonic aesthetic. There's that kind of like the fuzz... the washy vocals, that kind of, I don't know,
mysterious, washed out stonery.
Yeah, that kind of, and then like all the weird like modal stuff that they're exploring. Like, it's very, very aesthetic, and I really like that aesthetic. I think though, as an album whole,
Here we go.
it just gets like, there isn't enough contrast within the album itself. So, like, the textural treatment is awesome, and, like, the differentiations in between within a song, fucking cool. But then, about
as
song
a
6...
trip across the album, it's very much, like, cool through the same sort of motions.
So
Yeah.
you'd be happy to listen to any of these songs in isolation.
Yeah, or even as like a EP where it's like 2, 3, 4 songs or whatever.
Maybe even 6 songs.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think that once you get to album length, you need to start bringing out more kind of contrast, and I think they nearly got there. Easy was like that was a pretty strong contrast, but for me, not quite enough to really break out of the mold there.
That one was the one that I don't know if they did it on a lot of the other tracks, but it had really clear studio effects in terms of like the spacing and the panning.
Yeah.
Like the guitar line, the main guitar line was very understated but super left, and it meant that when the like rhythm distorted thing came in, it really hit you because it was in the right hand side, and all of a sudden it went from this small thing to this big wide track without really doing anything different to what they'd done in other things. It was just the spacing within the mix, which that was like I think the only time I was like, well, hang on a second, what was that? And I had to go and pay attention. So it could be there in the other ones, but it's just not like as explicit.
Yeah, and I think like having that, making that obvious is not going to be a bad thing for a whole album. So, like having a song where, I don't know, maybe the vocals clean up for a song. Like I feel like Easy could have been, like the melody was really, really cool. So
yeah, it was.
If you cleaned the vocals up, that would have just been like a real punch, get your attention back, sort of, I don't know, clear the palette. Maybe you can sink back into what you were doing before.
Also, I know you guys spoke about it
Man, you're smart.
before, but for me, this was the one where the organ stuck out the most and it's like most rhythmically independent from everything else. The chords and the stabs that it was doing.
I don't know if this will scan for either of you, but it reminded me of the Spyro the Dragon soundtrack where like the exact same thing happens. That was written by Stuart Copeland, so this is a compliment of the highest degree. He uses organ to like stab on dominant chords. He has the diminished shit going on in there, and like it just captures your attention. It's so funky. It's I love it so much. So I completely doubt that that's the intention, but it reminded me of that and I liked it. Sorry, go on with your story.
No, that was it. I didn't have more to add.
You were going to talk about Spyro the Dragon.
Again.
So for me, the albums start to feel a bit weak after Easy because yeah, but nah, which we'll get to the names in a moment. Thank you. It felt like a kind of continuation of Easy. It felt really similar to Easy. It's in the same key. It's got basically the same tempo with the same feel. The chords aren't really that far apart. It feels like a second part of that song, and that's fine. You can do that. It just, as you said, it needed a kick to revitalize my interest in it because the next 2 songs I was just not really interested in. When we got to Ring Around, that riff really brought me back into it, and I was listening to the rest of the album quite actively.
Yeah, the riff was really cool. Although, okay, low key, sitting on F sharp for nearly a whole minute, that got me. That was a bit too much, like especially after just having like the whole album and it was kind of like very similar, and I was just like, fuck this note. Please, let's just move on from this section. Like,
What have you got against F sharp?
F sharp, nothing about F sharp.
I don't know. It sounds like you really dislike F sharp.
You know what? F sharp and I, we got beef. We got history, man.
It's violinist.
Yeah, well, yeah, true. It is possibly the worst.
You want to talk about the titles?
Before we go to the titles,
Okay.
I've got a couple of things. They used a few different time signatures in here, didn't they?
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah. They used like a waltz feel in plans,
Yeah, there's a lot of
and
waltz
it kept
going
coming
on.
back, and it was cool. I mean, initially I was like, I wish they kept it longer in the intro, but then they kept bringing it back, and I was like, no, this is a really cool
great, yeah.
I really
breakup.
liked how they manipulated the material to suit from the 3/4 into the 4/4, like the main groove of the song. They like adapted the riff to fit that. That was, it's cool seeing how different musicians approach that problem. It was really interesting.
Yeah.
No, I think it worked really well, and like I said, it was just a nice change, and it wasn't just sitting in
I like
4/4, like kind of dirging on.
I like the bit at the end of that song where the singer, I can't remember his name, he's like impersonating a theremin. It sounds like he's doing a theremin. Gave me Beach Boys vibes. because of that.
Well, there we go. There's the surf rock.
I suppose.
Besides using time signatures, which I think they did in a couple of other songs, I really got, especially in slow, a huge like ZZ Top kind of vibe.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
like boogie
Yeah.
band kind of vibe,
Yeah,
which
I can
was
see that.
really fun as well. And I feel like I didn't get it as much.
I believe it's pronounced ZZ Top.
Yeah, sorry.
Top.
Apologies. I feel like the energy and boogie kind of vibe that was happening in slow didn't happen as much throughout the album. They ended up going a lot more psych. It wasn't as energetic.
Yeah.
Which I kind of wish they had brought back in a few songs.
Yes. Yeah. Again, with like the album contrast thing, right? Like Plans, that tango rhythm, very like blood, sweat, and tears. I got, and it's sort of like, I don't know if you reprised that song 7, song 8 in your album, could have just been fucking cool, really, really tasty. But
Anyway, titles.
I hate
Apes?
them. The titles are the worst thing ever.
Nah.
I disagree. I
Oh
think
yeah, but nah.
no.
Yeah, it's great.
That
Seriously.
it suits the aesthetic they're going
No.
for.
Over in doubt. Over in doubt.
Over
It
and
fits
doubt.
thematically
As
with
the
what the
last
lyrics
song.
are.
Yeah.
As
And
the
if you
last
have a song called Over and Doubt, it's going on the end of your album.
No. Oh. It's funny because it's a pun. Get it?
It fits thematically with what the lyrics are saying.
I don't hate all of them. I just hate Over in Doubt. And Oh Yeah But Nah. Oh Yeah But Nah. That's like, it's just so Australian.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah. Do you hate Australia?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. No, just it's very.
No, I disagree. I
You know?
think it's very on brand
Oh yeah.
with my understanding of who Beans are. And
Yeah, that's the other thing you got to take into consideration. The band's name is Beans. Are you expecting like the most serious? Are you expecting?
No, but like Oh Yeah But Nah. I mean, that's like, I'd expect that from the
the
chats.
album is called Babble.
There you go.
Yeah, but the chats are like, they're leaning into that. They're
And
like,
why aren't Beans are as well, clearly, because they have a song called Oh Yeah But Nah on an album called Babble.
By a band called
Beans.
Beans.
Oh, whatever. Fuck.
Yeah, you cannot like it. That's
can
fine.
just-
Yeah,
not
you
like
are
it.
allowed to not like it, but no, I think
For
that
those in the audience who also don't like it, it's okay. I stand with you in solidarity.
Talking to no one.
Oh, whatever.
favorite
yeah.
songs.
Uh,
Comfortable.
Really?
Yeah.
Not Ring Around?
Yeah.
Wow. That actually threw me.
Yeah. I like the space in comfortable.
Yeah, that surprised me so much. I've forgotten my own favorite song.
Well,
Blindsided by an opinion.
While you figure that out, I'm pretty sure my favorite is Slow, just because of the high energy and the boogie feel. It's very fun, and also the rotary effect on the guitar in that
Super cool.
is also super cool and super nice.
Either Easy or Ring Around. Probably
Alright.
Easy. I think Easy. Most contrast.
Click above to find out what else we've listened to this month.
Click below to support the artist we just listened to.
And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next episode.